5-year-old male back pain.
And welcome to the show, everybody. This is your host, Kermit the Frog. I know I just made a video yesterday on racism, and this will be podcast number 5 on education and conformity. And I know it's dreadfully ironic. I'm wearing a tie-dye t-shirt. I made this. I'll give you a look around it. Way cool, huh? So, yeah, I made this. I made this tie-dye, and I know it's kind of silly to be making a podcast slash video on education and conformity while wearing a notable hippie outfit. Yeah. See, I have long hair too. Whatever. So anyway, this topic of education and conformity came to me the other day. The other day I was talking to myself about the state of things, because I was considering moving away. I live in the Northeast, and I was considering what it might be like to live elsewhere. So I started thinking about, okay, well, where might I want to go? And I really had no idea. And it got me thinking about what I learned when I was in school about, in social studies, like most people do. You start to learn about different areas, different cultures, different countries, that kind of thing, and how they work, how they take care of their problems, how they kind of move around, and they do one thing versus another, or they have. Here's one of my favorites from social studies class to be like, oh, they're very rich in textiles and agriculture. And at the time, I didn't really know what that meant, because where I grew up in a farm town. The old textile mill was abandoned, and no one really did anything there, as far as that industry is concerned. Anyway, I mean, most things nowadays are shipped overseas, and they're done overseas, and it really wasn't a big thing. And it got me to thinking a while back, kind of the way that things have progressed in America. And this relates to the second topic of the title, called Conformity. The first one being education, and I'm going to get into that. So with conformity, think about this. Way back when, in the founding of this country, and basically just when people started coming over here from other countries and colonizing the United States, or colonizing North America, I should say, the major kind of industry, was like looking for gold, and that was the deal. You were a farmer, or a religious person. You had a township. You were a baker. You had any of these trades and these jobs that you did inside of your town. But other than that, you were a farmer. You contributed to your society in one way or another. If anybody's been to Old Sturbridge Village in Massachusetts, you know what I'm talking about. I went there a lot when I was a kid for school, field trips and things, and summertime trips. And remember this guy? He was a blacksmith, and he's hammering away in there, and he's, oh, I'm the blacksmith, and I'm doing my job, and I'm just going around, and I'm not feeding you hogs, and he would do these things, and they were very true to life. So, he would scare the kids, and he wouldn't be like, bleh, when you came in, but he would, you'd walk in the door, and, you creak open the door, and he'd be like, get out of my house, because way back when, in the 1800s, children didn't just go running around the town and trying to go into blacksmith shops and into unsafe areas. So the community parenting was very widespread back then. Anyway, it's enough about Old Sturbridge Village, but one thing that I learned a great deal about back then was how these societies worked. When you grew up, you were taught a trade. You were either going to be a farmer, or you were a blacksmith, or Maybe you were a seamstress, or maybe you worked in the fields. Maybe you did special work with animals. Maybe you were a doctor, shopkeep. Maybe you learned how to tend horses or break horses, as the case may be. And it was mainly because back then, before we had a unified monetary system, commerce was all based through trade. So rather than trading dollars, you would trade goods, especially between the North and the South. So as you're growing up, you are learning what you're going to be able to do for the rest of your life. So generally speaking, if you were a male, you would learn to be a butcher, a baker, a candlestick maker, a blacksmith, a farmer, or something like that. And if you were a female, then you may be a school teacher, or maybe you would be a midwife, or maybe you would be a nurse, or also a farmer, or any of the above. But being that the militias were being formed and things, the women would normally stay behind and learn things to go around the house, or learn ways to tend to family matters or raising children, while the men would go off to war or hunting. So it was a bit of a divided society, but if you look at it in the way that they were looking at it, it worked, because everybody had their place. Everybody had the job that they needed to do, regardless of gender. I just mean that it worked because everyone knew their place. So if I grew up in that time, I knew that I would be a farmer, or I would be maybe a blacksmith, I don't know. But given my interest today, I would probably be a farmer. I would work in agriculture, or with animals. Hey, maybe even a politician. I don't know. I don't know if politics back then were super duper different than they are today, but if they were, then I would probably be a politician. So anyway, my point being here, when you grew up in those days, yes, there was school. And yes, they did learn, reading, writing, and arithmetic. But there wasn't really a lot of history to go around. There wasn't really a lot of other things that we consider practical today, or in our own school systems in America. These things were taking place at what we're reading about now. So there really wasn't a lot to go around in school, and if you were going to go to school, it generally meant that you were going to leave your town, because what are you going to do with an education if everybody knows you? It's not going to make a difference whether or not you went to Little Red Schoolhouse. What is going to make a difference is if you know how to slaughter a hog, plow a field, and take care of a wife, to continue your family name, to create a family, to have a family, support a family, subsist a lifestyle, contribute to a society. These are what are the most important things, because when you're in school, you don't learn most of the things that you're going to need to know for the rest of your life. I went to school and people would be like, well, when am I ever going to use this math? And the teacher would be, oh, well, there's going to come a time and there's going to be a day when you're going to need that math and you're going to wish that I was there to teach you. And I would say, okay, well, in the real world, now I understand the importance of knowing how to do mathematics on your own without a calculator. However, in the real world, you are allowed to use calculators unless you're in a classroom. And now look at today. When I was a kid, there was no such thing as the internet. There was no such thing as cell phones. I mean, they were the size of a regular phone inside of a house that you had to carry a separate suitcase with. That's what cell phones looked like when I was young. So, way back then, in my mind, I was thinking, carrying around your little Casio calculator, and if I needed to do some sort of math, then I would be able to do it on the fly, like, whoosh, Casio. I don't have one to show you. Oh, maybe I have this. Whoosh, Casio. And that's what I would do. So when I'm in the fourth grade now, and well, not now, but in the fourth grade, I had these problems when I was in school, and it would be mainly because I would question my teachers, and I would say, that doesn't really make much sense. Why do I need to really buy into that? Why do I need to pay attention to that? Why do I need to learn this? And it wasn't that I was against learning. It was mainly that I was just questioning why I needed to pay attention to them and learn to them. Because to me, it was more important to understand, not that the world spins, but how it spins. Not that there are seasons and, to look at the different decorations on the wall or to have a party because now it's fall. I wanted to understand why it's fall. What happens to plant life and animal life with the season change where we live. I wanted to learn how crops are made and not who made them. So, I went throughout my schooling career and I went through all that business. And I know in certain areas of the country, they do have schooling systems where you're able to learn different trades, but not every one of them has this. And even if they do, it's a very small part of the curriculum. So, okay, back to conformity. Now let's go back in time a little bit. Put on your time thinking capsules. I'll wait a second for you to do that. Okay, so we should all have our time thinking capsules on by now. Let's go back to the 1700s, shall we? Or even before then. Let's stick 1700s. It's long enough ago. So one of the biggest crops that was grown was cannabis, or hemp, rather, that not necessarily the type of cannabis or hemp that we think of today with like what's in the mainstream media and TV. What is kind of not as well known is that the hemp plant has been used for millennia as a fiber. And they grow so tall in a span of 2 to 3 months that the amount of fiber or fibrous material that you can pull out of a single stalk is amazing. Now these stalks, they will grow 12 to 15 feet in 3 months. And it's one of the strongest materials known to man as far as a fibrous material is concerned. So, think about this. Why aren't we using hemp stalk anymore? What's the big deal? Well, it will grow literally almost anywhere. It is very cheap to produce. It's very cheap to process. It would free up a lot of farmland. Doesn't take much space to grow a lot of it. Now, who's this going to benefit? If you have this massive, massive crop that, 5 or 6 people could take down and grow, who is this going to profit? The little guy. Now, fast forward a little bit. Now, what we start growing? We start growing flax. Now, flax is also a really great plant. It's fibrous, but it takes a little bit longer to grow, and it's drastically shorter than hemp plants get in the same given period of time. Now, being that we're in the north in this story, we have season changes, so you really only have like 5-6 months tops to be able to plant and harvest something. Whereas in the southern states, you could plant and harvest for 12 months on a recurring scheduled cycle. So you could keep going. You could replant certain plants at certain times of the year so that when it comes time to harvest, you're not trying to plant another one when the season change happens. It's already been planted and it's already gone through that, so you have more leeway with your timing. But in the north, we do have winter. So now if you look at, now we're coming around Revolutionary War, Civil War era. Now we look at what happened in Slatersville, and then what happened in the South. So in Slatersville, Rhode Island, you had people growing flax, and around the time the cotton gin was invented, cotton became a more viable plant, because now you could grow massive cotton crops, and the people that would go and pick them, you don't have to pay. So cotton became a monopolized plant. So now cotton can't be grown in the northern United States. It's not warm enough for long enough. So now cotton is monopolized, brought down to the South, and we use slave labor to harvest said plant. So then, now fast forward a long time, because cotton has been being grown for a long time now, and this shirt's made of cotton. It's a Hanes t-shirt. My pants are made of cotton. They're cotton denim. Cotton is everywhere. I do have a lot of hemp things, and I have some flax things and some wool things, but the majority of the clothing that you'll end up finding is either polyester, acrylic, a blend, or cotton. Now, where do we get all these things? You might wonder. Well, hold on now. So, remember earlier I was talking about the future of agriculture in America. Well, it kind of stopped as far as the textiles go. So now we don't really process, manufacture, and grow a lot of textiles here anymore. We used to, but now we don't. And it all got shipped overseas. So now it's all gone. So then we ship out everything overseas, and cotton is grown overseas. Polyester is created. It's a type of acrylic. Polyester is an acrylic blend. Acrylic means plastic. So anytime you see something that's like polyester blend, acrylic blend, whatever, it's plastic, which is terrible for you, terrible for me, terrible for the environment. Different plastics they can be quite dangerous, depending on the chemical composition. Now, I know I have plastic on my head right now. I know there's, plastic sitting right in front of me. But let's face it, we really can't get away from plastics very often. So, if you look at this, now we started off with hemp, then we moved to flax, then we moved to cotton, then it goes overseas. Now it's cotton polyester blend, and we have acrylics. Mass marketing, employing slave labor and slave wages again in other countries, and it's like it hasn't really changed. And I was starting to wonder why. And I'm saying to myself, if people could be educated about this process, if schooling systems actually employed a way to teach people how to subsist on their own, or just even the knowledge of how to do this, we might not have this big of a problem all the time. Things could be different if we had the choice to grow flax, to grow hemp, to grow cotton, to grow whatever that we want to do. And we actually have the means and the ability and the skill set to create our own fabrics and then create our own clothing. Think about how many times you've been in school and, you're like the low man on the totem pole. So, you got people making fun of you because of what clothing you wear, or you got people making fun of you because, you're not wearing this person or that person, or, you don't wear this company. Happens everywhere, and it's just kind of silly. What if you could make your own clothes that looked pretty badass or pretty cool? I would go for it. Like a t-shirt like I'm wearing right now. This thing probably cost me about $2 to make. People are selling them for $20, $30, $40. It's a tie-dye t-shirt. I like tie-dye, so I made one day. Actually, I made 13 of them. Most of my wardrobe is stuff that I've made. And it was mainly just because I didn't feel like spending all the money for somebody else's work when I could do it on my own. So it's just something to consider. So now back to education. Now, we are in school from the age of 4 to 6 all the way to 17, 18 years old. And that's just the regular schooling system. Then after that, there's voluntary post-high school education, known as college. After that, grad school, tech school, whatever you want to call it. There are many different forms of education in this country, and we have a lot of options. However, what is not an option is to not attend school. So the education system is now mandatory in America. Well, it's been mandatory for a long time, but you are criminally prosecuted under truancy law if you don't go to school. And what I thought was interesting is, why do we send people to school in the first place, right? It's to educate them. It's to learn. It's to know how the world works, right? Well, you receive no training whatsoever in how to live life when you're in school. That's one. Two, the education system at large is designed to conform to society. Meaning that when you go to school, you're told when to stand up, when to sit down, who to pledge allegiance to, who your friends are, where your locker's going to be, where you can eat lunch, when you can eat lunch, how much lunch you can eat. You are taught that your teacher is God. And you're taught that, no pushing on the playground. And if you have a problem, you go to this person or you go to that person. You tell them what that person did, and we'll make it right. Remember when I was a kid, I was getting beat up in school. And if you defended yourself, you would be in trouble. You would get detention. And I was saying to myself, well, why? Why should I get in trouble if I'm defending myself or others? Whether it be verbally or physically. I mean, I got punched in the face, and you shove the kid back. And it's now I'm in trouble? Explain this, please. I mean, I'm a pretty nonviolent person. I'm not a violent person at all. But self-defense, what are you really trying to teach me here? Or are you teaching me to just bend over? Are you teaching me to just hey, I'll lay down, you can walk all over me? That was the message that I got when I was in school. You only learn to be obedient. You don't learn critical thinking skills most cases. So what you're actually learning is do what you're told, do it when you're told, and do it without any sort of question. In fact, you learn not to question the authority. And it's not like questioning authority to be a dick. It's questioning authority for the betterment of your own conscious self, to better understand why this person is telling you this. So it's not like somebody says, go eat lunch. Why? Do your homework. Why? I don't feel like it. I don't have to do what you say. I'm questioning authority. No, you're not. You're being a punk. My thing was, when we're learning about the Revolutionary War, say, and they would say, well, we're going to take a test on this and we're going to take a test on that. And then that'll basically, that'll be your grade for the year. And I said, hey, so you want us to read from this book, watch this movie, do all these worksheets and these work papers and do all these tests. And then if we get everything right, then that means that we learned a lot about the Revolutionary War. Yes, it does. Okay, well, here's my question. So you're telling me that because I'm consuming this information and then regurgitating it back to you, that the vomit all over this piece of paper that I'm writing down with this pencil and this piece of paper and this effort and all this memory regurgitation, all this crap that I'm just spilling back out, being spoon-fed and said back to you, that means that I learned something, or does that mean that I memorized what you told me? There's a very big difference. Now, I'm not against at all learning about the history of this country, but what I want to get out there is the fact that there is a clear and present difference between learning and memorization. Now, what I learned about the Revolutionary War is that sometimes you have to bite the hand that feeds you. That sometimes you run into a situation where the people that are supposed to be your ally, or the people that pretend to be an ally, sometimes are not that way. Sometimes you might be overlooking a situation, and when they just infringe and infringe and infringe and infringe and infringe, it's time to put your foot down, and then it's time to say, you know what? You might be big, I might be little, but I am a person. I'm a human being. I have rights. I don't care who says otherwise. I know that I have rights. I was born here, and I was born on this planet with certain unalienable rights that no one can take away from me. And that's what they did. And it was a long, drawn-out, bloody war. But, at the very end of it, they declared independence. When you pledge allegiance to that flag every morning when you go to school, you should be declaring independence. That's what that means. When that poem was written, the Pledge Allegiance to the Flag, what that flag stood for is independence. What it stands for today, that's debatable. But when that song was written, when that Constitution was written and signed, when all those amendments were written, the Bill of Rights in every state constitution, every amendment put forth, is about independence, it's about freedom, and it's about the self. It's about the group, the community. Not just looking at a conglomerated business affair. It's about each person. That's what I learned about the Revolutionary War. That's what I learned about the beginning of our country. At that time, people were so fired up and pissed off about what was going on that they decided just to not conform, to educate themselves, and to go forward with it. And I don't see a lot of that today. I see people whining and complaining. I just watched the Occupy Unmasked. If those people wanted to make a difference, then why was it allowed for those fringe groups of people to go just rampant, running around the town, running around New York City, setting stuff on fire, breaking windows, breaking into the bank, breaking the windows of the bank, rampant sexual assaults, physical assaults, robberies? I mean, I understand what can happen at a protest, and I also understand frustration levels. But I don't think that in this particular case, these people knew what they were fighting for, knew what they were even standing for, because the Occupy movement happened all around the country. And on the West Coast, it was a bunch of unions. Over on the East Coast in New York, there was a lot of people just walking around. Hey, man, we don't like the banks. That's just the way that it is. Bank of America, close the accounts. Bank of America, pay your taxes. If you have an account with Bank of America, then you should be American and close your account. Occupy. That's all I saw. And I was like, okay, well, they're out there. They're saying something. But I don't believe that that's an original thought. Ergo, education versus conformity. So if you have a lot of people that are protesting something popular that you see on Twitter and Facebook and everywhere else, it doesn't make you a hero to go conform to that unconformity. It's paradoxical and it's ridiculous. I went to school of hard knocks, whatever. But you don't. Either way, you're not graduating with any real skill set. You're not graduating from regular school knowing oh, I know exactly what I want to be when I grow up. I know exactly what I want to do. The majority of high school graduates have no idea what they want to do. And if that's oh, I want to go to college, then great. You want to go to college, but what are you going to do after that? Are you going to go for liberal arts? Are you going to go for business? Really? When I was in college, I went to school with a bunch of people that were there for business or liberal arts. So, okay, but what are you going to do with this? Because at the end of the day, it's just a piece of paper. I'm a college graduate. I unload trucks for a living, What happened? I don't know. But, I went through all the schooling, and all I really learned there was that there is no support of critical thinking. In most cases, they don't support critical thinking. They don't support questioning. They support obedience to authority, which at a certain age and at a certain level needs to happen, but that's just simply called respect. That's respect for your elders. But you can still respect someone while questioning them. And if they respect you and if they respect themselves, then they will say, That is a valid point. Let's explore this. Maybe not just like that, but it can totally happen. Now, think about this for a second. Spanning from 2015 down to 1776, we have created debt-based money. And in the last couple of years, we know that Barack Obama has tried to, what they call, raise the debt ceiling, because we're already maxed out in our country's debt. We're already so far gone that our children's children are still going to be paying off this debt, trillions of dollars of debt, and he wants to raise the debt ceiling so that we won't default. And this is where the whole Occupy movement thing came in, the 99% versus the 1%. The 1% owning most of the wealth in the world. It's believed that the Rothschild family owns 80% of the world's wealth. The rest of the 20% is held up by the other 4 or 5 large ruling families, and then 99% of the rest of the world has less than 20% of the world's wealth. Something's not right here. So because we have a debt-based economy and debt-based money that we pass around, and to the individual it's worth so much, but then when you go to buy anything from a business, even if it's a small business, that money becomes nothing. Just today, I went to the grocery store. I got salad, some berries, a couple cucumbers, a few boxes of couscous. $20. Now, if I went to Stop and Shop, I would not have been able to get all these things for $20. I went to Aldi's. In the last week, I was at Whole Foods. I got 2 cartons of strawberries. It was $11. I got 3 cartons of strawberries at Aldi's for $5. So you can see, depending on the industry, depending on where you buy things from, your dollar will go further or it won't. And it's really because we have a debt-based economy. So whoever you're buying these things from can either raise their own debt ceiling or lower their own debt ceiling, depending on a lot of different business factors. But my point being that we are indoctrinated, not educated. So you need to take it upon yourself to educate yourself and find people in your life that can educate you, not indoctrinate you. The education is compulsory. We're forced into school. We don't have the option to learn about how the world works in our own way. And many times when that happens, like if a truant decides, oh, well, I'm old enough, I'm of age, I'm just going to drop out of school. Well, what usually happens is because of our debt-based economy, you can't have a job without a GED or a high school diploma. Well, great. But, I've been denied working places because I went to college. Because they think that I'm too smart for that job, or that I might start to question things. And that's actually happened in the past. I've gotten jobs and I start to question them, and then it comes time and they're like, yeah, layoffs, sorry. And I know it's because I questioned the manager's authority, when what really happened was I was like, if you do it this way, you might end up with more return on that. Or if you do it this way, the customer base might not be so intimidated by your tactics. And one of the biggest sins of all, I think, is that it's wiping out the spirit of adventure. I mean, it really is. If you go to school every day, everything is mundane, compulsory, just, it's like the Matrix. You go in and you're into the Matrix, and you put the thing in the back of your head and you're in the Matrix and you're just, and Neo is over there and he's flying around doing all these crazy things. Meanwhile, his body that's now indoctrinated wherever he is just laying there being spoon-fed bullcrap. Like a few weeks ago, a good buddy of mine, he says to me, you know what? So many people are kept in the dark and fed shit, and I don't think that anybody's actually a mushroom, and that shouldn't be happening. So we need to open that closet door, open up the jar that we're all sitting in, get some sunlight, and stop eating crap that we're fed. I thought it was awesome. I could just see this big American flag standing behind him, and he's just like, my fellow Americans, we should not be spoon-fed fecal matter and be kept in the dark. we need to get out there and farm and get into sunlight and defeat cancer and meet eating possibilities. We need to eliminate sodium nitrate from our meats and our food supply, fluoride from our drinking water. This is what I think about. Anyway, so one of the biggest things too is that when you're in a regular school, you never learn how to fix a car, really relate to other people, grow a garden, have a farm, how to work for a living, how to build your own house, or in all manner of ways to be self-sufficient. And it's like the aim of conventional education in our society is to breed the lowest common denominator in society, so that people who come out of this indoctrination will be able to just be put anywhere that people want them. But what they don't take into account is that we're individuals. We all have our strengths and weaknesses. But when we continue to buy into the hype and buy into marketing and buy into indoctrinated society, it's engineering to be docile. It's destroying free will as we know it. So it's like, if you grow up watching today's MTV versus the 80s MTV, it's like, well, you grow up thinking like, oh, well, I can be 16 and pregnant, and maybe I'll end up on that show, and then maybe I'll find a wonderful boyfriend who treats me like a queen, but really he's sneaking around on the side. And, maybe, I'll be on my super sweet 16, or maybe, it's full of these astronomical maybes, it's... The world is not going to become a better place by people just thinking that stuff's going to be handed to them. People need to learn how to be self-sufficient in a variety of different ways. And that's not to say that we shouldn't ask for help when we need help, but it's just to say that you should try your hardest first to learn whatever skill set you need to learn. And if you don't know it, find someone who does. Place your trust in somebody else. And for the trustees, be trustworthy. Don't be a jerk. It's as simple as that. Our country was designed as a democratic republic. And it's not really looking that way anymore, is it? It's changing, and I'm not going to be like, Red Ron, we fear change, but everything is changing now in the last couple of generations. The value system that normally would be around is just not there anymore. And maybe it's just because, like, I'm on the East Coast. Maybe it's just on the East Coast. I know, like, out West, things are a lot different. In the Midwest, things are a lot different. In the South, things are a lot different. And maybe in my region, it's just a little bit junky. I don't know. I mean, if you're from anywhere else and you're watching this video, comment down below. Whoop, right there. Also, you should subscribe. And maybe like the video. Anyway, I don't know. It's just my experience. But I know that the system is designed for either success or for failure, and how well we can absorb and regurgitate the information that is fed to us really decides your fate, whether or not you're going to succeed or fail. So basically, you are asked to do things without question. But to that I say, I think, therefore I am. The age of the free thinker is kind of being washed a little bit, and our lives are being based upon popular opinion. Our lives are being based around Facebook. Our lives are being based around Instagram, Twitter, these things. Now, I'm a media element. I'm using YouTube. I'm using Facebook. I'm using Twitter. But I'm not going to say Facebook is evil and Twitter is evil and YouTube is evil, because you know what? It's helping get messages out there. It's not it's not the thing that's going to make things a problem. It's the person that does. You know, like what they say, it's like guns don't kill people, people kill people. Well, you know what? Websites don't create douchebags. People are already douchebags, and they spread their douchebagginess around on the internet. And that's what happens. So it's like, why continue this? Why become a statistic? Why not just speak up for yourself, stand tall, stand strong, take control of your own life? Ask those questions that need to be asked. Answer those ones that you know. Get out there. And for anybody that's in school right now, if you're in high school, if you're in elementary school, if you're in college and you're reading this or you're listening to this or watching this, whatever, I encourage you. I want you to go and learn. I want you to stay in school. I want you to get the most out of it you possibly can. Ask the questions of your teachers. That's what they're there for. And no matter like how much trouble you get in for asking questions, be respectful of with your questioning. Be respectful of these people who take time out of their day to help you. Pay special attention to the little nuggets of information that they might have for you. They became a teacher to help kids. You know, even if you think that they suck, some of them do. I'm not going to lie. Some teachers just maybe shouldn't be teachers right now, or maybe they need a vacation. But take into account that while you might be the one that sits there and listens to what they have to say, there could be 50 other people in their day that have no interest whatsoever in what they have to say. So be that person. Be the change you want to see in the world. Change the world one life at a time. Change it by just changing yours. If you change your life, you're going to affect so many other people. It's going to be just this astronomical explosion of life-changing possibility that can come just from one thought, one idea that you can have today. And if you call in the next 10 minutes, it will only be one payment of $19.95, not 4. Anyway, I encourage all of you to subscribe to my channel, like my videos, go to facebook.com/MeepTruthRadio, follow me on Twitter @MeepRadio, comment on my videos, let me know what you want to hear more about. Post response videos, I always like those. Send me an email at MeepRadio@yahoo.com. Send me a message on here. I'm always around. I love doing research. I love connecting with the community. If you're a school, like a school kid, somebody in school, somebody at college, if you have any questions, if you have any need advice about something, I'll make a video for you. I'll take time out of my day and write you back an email. You know, oh, Kermit, I'm having a problem in my math class. My teacher's really trying to teach me these things and I just don't understand. He's really kind of a jerk and I don't really know how to get through this. I can help you with that because I had that problem too. Or, you know, oh, my parents, they just don't understand the way that I live my life or that I want to live my life, and they're just so far out there that I just, you know, I want to be me, I want to be an individual, I want to be myself, and they just won't accept me. Whatever it is, you can come to me and ask. That's what I'm here for. That's why I'm on the internet. Thank you for watching Meep Radio. This is Kermit the Frog. I hope you all have a fantastic day. And remember, learning is not necessarily an education.